At the start of our story, we meet Sun Hai Young, a young girl with a sharp mind and a knack for asking questions. One day during a school game, she boldly challenges her PT teacher, questioning why the boys always get to play soccer on the spacious field while the girls are stuck playing dodgeball. This small act of defiance hints at a deeper frustration brewing inside her, a feeling that grows each time she sees her kind and generous mother fostering children. While the other kids bask in her mother's warmth, Hae Young feels left out. Quietly calculating how much love and attention she's lost. Years later, Hae Young has grown into a determined and pragmatic woman, often weighing life's moments in terms of profit and loss. At a colleague's wedding, she finds herself deep in thought, wondering how much money she should spend on the gift. Weddings, she muses, seem to be a financial trap, with all the gifts she's given over the years adding up to what could have been a small fortune. But her thoughts are interrupted when she realizes the groom is none other than her ex-boyfriend Woo Jae. They broke up just 6 months ago, and here he is, happily marrying someone else. In another part of the city, Kim Ji-UK steps into a tense job interview. Instead of asking about his skills, the panel questions him about being an orphan, a topic that stings despite his polite demeanor. When another candidate is put on the spot with an uncomfortable question, Ji-UK intervenes, suggesting the matter be reported to the Human Rights Commission. His courage earns disapproving looks from the interviewers, but he stands firm. Afterwards, Ji-UK apologizes to the other candidates, his sincerity shining through. Back at the wedding, Hae Young receives a call from the nurse at her mother's care facility, urging her to visit soon. Her mind flashes back to the painful day she broke up with Woo Jae. In the memory, she tells him, without much emotion. As he stumbles, heartbroken, she wordlessly applies a bandage to his scraped hand, a quiet gesture of farewell. In the present, Hae Young's gaze drifts to the wedding slideshow, where a photo of Woo Jae and his new wife flashes on the screen. The same bandage on his hand catches her eye. Her colleague's casual remark about their one-year anniversary hits Hae Young like a thunderbolt. Woo Jae had been cheating on her for at least 6 months. Fury bubbles up inside her. For a brief moment, Hae Young imagines standing up, ripping a tablecloth from a nearby table and transforming it into an impromptu wedding dress. Draped in her imaginary ensemble, she pictures herself storming into the spotlight and calling out Woo Jae for his betrayal in front of everyone. But this scene plays out only in her mind. Instead, she remains seated, quietly fuming while plastering on a polite smile for the rest of the event. Later, Hae Young meets her friends, Ja Yeon and Hui Song, at their shared apartment. With a wistful smile, she shows them the bouquet she caught at the wedding. She recounts the awkwardness of being there, facing Woo Jae and his new wife, Yi Lin, knowing the truth about their betrayal. As her friends console her, she admits her anger isn't just about the infidelity, it's also about the money she wasted on a gift for someone who didn't deserve it. Her friends chuckle knowingly, listing all the ways Hae Young's relationships have ended because she couldn't help but measure love in terms of gain and loss. Meanwhile, Ji-UK returns a borrowed suit to a police officer he knows well. The officer smiles, mentioning how Ji-UK has a reputation for reporting crimes and helping catch criminals. From assisting the elderly to supporting the community, Ji-UK is known as a local hero, earning the nickname Angel among his neighbors. At work, Hae Young complains to her colleague about how unfair it is that the company gives extra perks to married employees while single workers like her miss out. The conversation shifts when she spots Woo Jae nearby. Gathering her courage, she confronts him about his infidelity. Woo Jae, unrepentant, dismisses her accusations. When she demands he repay her for all the money she spent on their relationship, he refuses, claiming he can't afford it. In a flashback, Hae Young remembers sitting outside a convenience store with a drunk Woo Jae. He had just received a promotion and was celebrating with her. In his drunken rambling, he mentioned how she was solely responsible for her mother's care, making it sound like being with her was a burden. The comment had sealed their breakup. Now, in the present, Hae Young calls him and threatens to meet Yi Lin. Panicked, Woo Jae rushes to stop her, only to realize she hadn't said anything to Yi Lin. The scare leaves him visibly shaken, and he admits he has no money to pay her back because Yi Lin controls all their finances. That evening, Hae Young heads to the local grocery store to buy her favorite jellies, only to run into Ji-UK. The two clash immediately, bickering over the store's discontinued products. Their animosity is palpable, with years of mutual dislike bubbling beneath the surface. Ji-UK, though usually kind, seems to have a particular grudge against Hae Young, and she's determined to give him a reason for it. Her apartment, Ja Yeon finishes writing a chapter of her web novel. While scrolling through comments, she notices a positive one from Jong-ae, a wealthy woman who happens to be the mother of Ju Hyun, the CEO of the company where Hae Young works. Jong-ae's son is under pressure from his father to bring the company to the top of the industry within a year or face the prospect of an arranged marriage. The next day, Hae Young sees a poster for an idea contest at work. The winners will get to work directly with the CEO's team and receive fast-track promotions. Excited, she shares her enthusiasm with her boss, only to be told that single women are rarely chosen for such roles due to the CEO's father's strict preferences. Frustrated by the systemic bias, Hae-young buys a bottle of soju and drowns her sorrows. Fueled by liquid courage, she storms over to Guk and, without thinking, asks him to be her fiancé. In the quiet night, Guk looks at her, startled and speechless. His mind flashes back to a conversation he overheard a few months ago, where Woo Jae had mentioned Hae-young's struggles with taking care of her mother. He sits beside her, watching her in silence before offering her a cigarette. A wordless gesture of comfort. As the night stretches on, Hae-young continues to insist, albeit drunkenly, that Guk should be her fake groom. Guk, trying to stay patient, laughs it off and says, "My grandmother told me to marry a decent, modest woman. You don't seem like her." Hae-young, unbothered by the jab, declares that she can be decent and modest if she wants to. Guk raises an eyebrow, clearly unconvinced. A flashback takes us to Guk as a teenager visiting his grandmother in a nursing home. Despite her foul-mouthed humor and smoking habit, she always spoke fondly of Guk and dreamed of him finding a simple, kind woman to marry. Back in the present, Guk remembers her words and shakes his head at Hae-young's drunken antics. The next morning, Hae-young wakes up with a throbbing headache and only vague memories of her bold proposal. Determined to salvage her plan, she heads to the convenience store to find Guk. He listens to her renewed plea, but his answer is the same, a firm no. "I have no interest in fake marriages," he says, walking away. But Hae-young isn't one to give up easily. At work, Hae-young is approached by Yi-lin, Woo Jae's wife, who casually mentions that both their submissions for the idea contest are eerily similar. This catches Hae-young off guard. A flashback reveals that she had once shared the idea with Woo Jae when they were dating. Yi-lin's calm tone feels like a veiled warning. Furious, Hae-young confronts Woo Jae, demanding he drop the idea. Woo Jae smirks and retorts, "And what will you do? Tell everyone you're my bitter ex who can't let go." Thinking fast, Hae-young blurts out that she's getting married in a month. Woo Jae falters, caught off guard by her declaration. But the moment she walks away, Hae-young realizes the gravity of her lie. If she's going to convince everyone, she'll meet a fake fiancé, and soon. Determined, Hae-young returns to Guk's store, this time armed with logic and desperation. She lays out her plan, explaining how the sham marriage would be mutually beneficial. Guk, however, remains unmoved, insisting that she find someone else. Frustrated, Hae-young begins brainstorming alternatives. She looks through her pile of old wedding invitations and vows to invite all those people to her fake wedding, hoping to recover the money she spent on their gifts. At home, her friends try to talk her out of it. Ja-yeon warns her that a fake marriage is fraud, while Hui-sung argues that it's unfair to use her mother as part of the charade. But Hae-young, feeling cornered, snaps back, telling them not to interfere. The argument escalates, ending with Hui-sung storming out in anger. Ja-yeon follows to comfort her, leaving Hae-young alone with her thoughts. Later, while Hui-sung is on a bus, she scrolls through her phone and stumbles upon a photo of her boyfriend with another woman. Her heart sinks, but she doesn't say a word. Meanwhile, Guk finds himself dealing with a shady man at his store, a known gigolo who preys on vulnerable women. The man taunts Guk, but Guk stays calm, even when the tension escalates. When the man's phone drops, Guk deliberately steps on it, shattering the screen. In retaliation, the man punches Guk in the face, leaving a bruise but failing to break his composure. Back at the nursing home, Hae-young receives an urgent call about her mother. Rushing over, she finds her friend Hui-sung already there, trying to calm her mother down from a violent episode. After the chaos subsides, Hui-sung confronts Hae-young about hiding her mother's condition. Tearfully, Hae-young explains that her mother's dementia diagnosis came as a shock, and she didn't know how to handle it. The two women reconcile, sharing a quiet moment of understanding. The next day, Hae-young is determined to push forward with her wedding plan. She approaches Guk again, catching him outside in the rain. "Are you really going through with this?" he asks, standing under her umbrella. Hae-young nods, her resolve unwavering. Guk hesitates, then steps closer, pulling her into an unexpected hug. "Do you feel anything?" he asks. Flustered, Hae-young stammers but insists she doesn't. Satisfied, Guk agrees to the fake marriage on one condition. She has to take in a stray cat he's been feeding outside the store. Though reluctant, Hae-young agrees, and the two begin preparing for their charade. She shops for a wedding dress, dragging Guk along to get his measurements. While trying on tuxedos, Guk's transformation leaves Hae-young momentarily stunned. He looks strikingly handsome, a detail she hadn't accounted for in her carefully crafted plan. People will remember you, she mutters, almost to herself. Guk smirks, saying, don't worry. I won't remember this either. Their preparations take an awkward turn when they run into Woo Jae and Yi Lin at the bridal shop. Hae Young freezes, but Guk remains calm, stepping out confidently in his tuxedo. The encounter leaves everyone speechless, but Guk's quiet strength helps Hae Young maintain her composure. As they leave, she realizes that despite her carefully calculated plan, nothing about this fake marriage is going as expected. The moment Guk steps out in his tuxedo, the entire room seems to hold its breath. Even Hae Young, who had hoped Guk would blend into the background, can't help but stare. His tall frame and effortless charm transform the simple tuxedo into something out of a fashion ad. Yi Lin lingers, visibly intrigued, while Woo Jae looks uncomfortable. How did you two meet? Yi Lin finally asks with a sly smile. Without missing a beat, Guk replies, we've known each other since childhood. Hae Young nods stiffly, praying the conversation ends quickly. Later, as they walk to a nearby cafe, Young can't hold back her frustration. You never told me you looked this good in a suit, she scolds, her voice sharp. Guk raises an eyebrow, amused. Would it have changed anything? He teases. She huffs and mutters, I didn't want you to be remembered for this wedding. At the cafe, Guk explains that his grandmother always told him to avoid relying on his looks. She believed beauty makes life harder. He shares, stirring his coffee absent-mindedly. But I'll admit, he adds with a sly grin, I wanted to show off in front of your ex. It was embarrassing seeing his smug face. Hae Young laughs despite herself. You win by a landslide in looks, she concedes. Meanwhile, Woo Jae can't seem to get Hae Young and Guk out of his mind. At home, Yi Lin casually comments, Hae Young is exactly your type. Woo Jae brushes her off, claiming he's never thought of her that way. But his restless demeanor says otherwise. Back at work, Ju Hyun tries to convince his mother to allow unmarried women onto his team, citing fairness and potential talent. His mother, immersed in an erotic novel on her tablet. Your father's affairs ruined our family's reputation, she says firmly. Frustrated but unable to argue further, Ju Hyun heads to the office. There, he runs into Hae Young, who is handing out wedding invitations with a wide smile. He congratulates her, and she cheerfully thanks him, but her thoughts are elsewhere. During a team meeting, Hae Young overhears her colleagues discussing Guk. Thanks to Yi Lin's casual remarks, everyone knows he's incredibly handsome. They start peppering Hae Young with questions about their proposal and wedding ring. Hae Young dodges them with vague answers, but she realizes she'll need a video to make their relationship look convincing. That evening, she storms into Guk's store, determined to convince him to stage a proposal. We need a romantic video, she insists, placing a bouquet of fake flowers on the counter. Guk shakes his head, unimpressed. You're crazy, he replies bluntly. She launches into a dramatic speech, even mentioning the baby they'll raise together, referring, of course, to the cat Guk made her adopt. Two teenage students watching nearby giggle and chime in, scolding Guk for being unromantic. Before the scene escalates, the cat appears, ending Hae Young's act. Undeterred, Hae Young grabs a selfie stick and starts filming herself pretending to be on dates with Guk. She poses in parks, cafes, and even outside the store, but without Guk beside her, it all feels hollow. Her friends later watch the footage and burst into laughter. Your eyes look dead, Jaeyeon teases, shaking her head. In his tiny apartment, Guk receives continuous texts from someone named Yu Kyung. The messages urge him to move to Canada, but he replies curtly, saying he's getting married. The conversation leaves him unsettled, but he doesn't elaborate. The next day, Hae Young rents a wedding ring for Guk and picks up her own. While running an errand at Guk's, she suddenly finds herself locked inside. The lights go out, and a soft glow from fairy lights guides her to the back of the store. There, she finds a message spelled out with her favorite jelly cups. Mary Main. A toy train rolls up, carrying a tiny, playful ring. Guk steps out from the shadows, holding more of the jelly she loves. I bought these before they stopped making them, he says, his voice calm but earnest. So, will you marry me for a moment? Hae Young is too stunned to speak. Then, she nods, unable to hide her smile. As they clean up the store, Guk admits that the fake marriage is also helping him. Someone I know wants me to move to Canada, he says quietly. This will stop them from bothering me. Hae Young sympathizes but warns him, if you ever propose for real, make it better than this. Guk smirks and replies, I'll avoid women who want hotel rooms and designer bags, women like you. Later, Hoi Song and Jaeyeon watch the proposal video and notice something unusual. Her eyes look different. Hoi Song comments. She looks happy. Meanwhile, Ju Hyun stumbles upon his mother's tablet, only to find the scandalous web novels she's been reading. He quickly closes it, feeling flustered. Finally, the wedding day arrives. Hae Young decides to forgo the waiting room, choosing instead to greet guests in the hallway. Her mother uses the room, welcoming the foster children she raised, now grown and thriving. Hui Song and Jia Yan tear up, realizing Hei Young planned this moment for her mother. As Hei Young waits outside the hall, she sees another bride with her father. Memories flood back of her own father, who once comforted her when she felt overshadowed by the foster children. She wonders if her mother regrets losing him. Ji-UK arrives, offering a reassuring smile. Together, they walk down the aisle. For a moment, everything feels real, and Hei Young wonders if her mother sees it that way too. After the ceremony, Hei Young and Ji-UK prepare to part ways. But when Yi Lin and Wu Jae appear at the hotel, Hei Young convinces Ji-UK to join her. The couples are booked into adjacent rooms, forcing Hei Young and Ji-UK to continue their act. As the door closes behind them, Ji-UK smirks and says, "You shouldn't trust a man like me." Hei Young glares, but her heart races just a little faster. Inside the hotel room, the awkwardness between them is almost palpable. Ji-UK sits on the edge of the bed, looking entirely too relaxed for Hei Young's comfort. "This is nice," he says casually, glancing around the room. "You've been in a hotel before, right?" she teases, trying to regain control of the situation. When Ji-UK raises an eyebrow, she adds smugly, "Do you need tips for when you're here with someone for real?" Ji-UK leans back slightly, a playful smirk tugging at his lips. "I thought the kiss at the wedding was enough practice," he says. The comment sends Hei Young's mind spiraling into a flashback of the wedding ceremony. She had firmly requested to skip the traditional kiss, but when the crowd started chanting, the pressure became unbearable. Just as their lips almost met, her mother's dementia flared. "I need to go home," her mother had announced loudly, standing up and looking disoriented. The interruption allowed Hei Young to avoid the kiss entirely. Back in the present, Hei Young snaps out of the memory, crossing her arms. "Don't get too comfortable," she warns. But Ji-UK isn't done. He pushes her onto the bed, leaning close enough that she can feel his breath. "I'm not as inexperienced as you think," he says smoothly. For a moment, Hei Young freezes, her heart pounding, but she quickly regains composure. With a smirk, she pulls him closer before shoving him off. "Go take a shower," she says, trying to sound nonchalant. The second the bathroom door closes, she places her hand on her chest, trying to steady her racing heart. Meanwhile, Jia Yan's life takes a sharp turn as her novels begin gaining traction. Her steamy romance stories, written under the pen name Yan Bo Ra, have caught the attention of many, including Ju Hyu Hyan. He's so affected by the plot lines that he ends up in the hospital, hooked to an IV drip. "Did you know my mother reads these?" he asks Ha-jun, showing him the book on his tablet. Ha-jun is left speechless, unsure whether to laugh or be concerned. Back at the hotel, Hei Young and Ji-UK sit on the bed, counting the cash from the wedding. "I don't trust you to count it alone," she says bluntly. Ji-UK frowns, clearly offended. "You barely know anything about me," he replies. After a moment's hesitation, he opens up a little. "The person in Canada. It's my mother," he admits. "But she has her own family now. My grandmother's last wish was for me to stay here, to avoid causing trouble for her." Hei Young listens quietly, her sharp edges softening just a bit. Elsewhere, Jia Yan is battling her own struggles. A user named Luckyu has been leaving hateful comments on her novel, and the negativity is beginning to take its toll. One evening, while scrolling through the comments, she suddenly feels a wave of anxiety and slams her laptop shut. Her hands tremble as she tries to calm herself down. The next morning, Hei Young and Ji-UK head to the airport. Ji-UK insists on coming along after Yi Lin sees them boarding the bus together. As they sit together, Ji-UK asks, "Why aren't you taking this trip with your mom?" Hei Young hesitates before replying, "I love her, but I don't really like her." She hands him some cash, encouraging him to go to Canada and live his life the way he wants. "Don't let your grandmother's wishes hold you back," she says. Before they part, she calls him husband, causing him to chuckle. On the flight, Hei Young discovers an envelope in her purse. Inside is a letter from Ji-UK, along with some cash. The letter wishes her happiness and luck, signed simply. Ji-UK, a flashback shows him writing it late at night while she slept, a small, thoughtful gesture that lingers in her mind. 3 months later, life has shifted dramatically. Hei Young wins first place in the company contest, while Wu Jae takes second, despite stealing her idea. Jia Yan, meanwhile, signs a contract for an audio version of her novel. Her editor gleefully announces that their lawyer is filing a defamation suit against the person leaving hateful comments, none other than Ju Hyu Hyan. His parents are furious and demand he resolve the issue quietly. At the awards ceremony, Ju Hyu Hyan's absence is noted but doesn't overshadow Hei Young's victory. Afterward, a colleague encourages her to bring her husband to the team dinner, but she brushes it off with a quick excuse. On her way home, she stops by Ji-UK's store, only to realize he's no longer there. For 3 months, she's mistaken a new. The realization stings, and she leaves feeling abandoned. Unbeknownst to her, Ji-UK has been spending time with her mother at the nursing home. The next morning, Hei Young vents her frustration to Hui Song, upset that Ji-UK disappeared without a word. At the same time, Ju Hyu Hyan, dressed in shabby clothes to avoid being recognized as a CEO, faces defamation charges at the police station. Jia Yan, who's been watching from a distance, tries to confront him but trips and falls. In the commotion, Ju Hyu Hyen notices her phone, which displays a text with her pen name. Realizing her identity, Ja Yeon panics and flees. Hey Young gets a frantic call from Ja Yeon and rushes to help. She finds her hiding in a phone booth, visibly shaken. You should have told me, Hae Young says gently. They retrieve Ja Yeon's phone from the police station, and on the way back, Hae Young reassures her that she's not alone. That evening, Ji-UK walks past the nursing home when a mysterious man steps out of a car and calls his name. The next day, Hae Young heads to her office, only to freeze when she spots Ji-UK among a group of new hires. He walks toward her with a calm smile. I missed you, he says, leaving her speechless. Hae-Young struggles to maintain her composure as Ji-UK joins the team of new employees. She quickly gathers her thoughts and delivers a scathing welcome speech to the recruits, her eyes darting to Ji-UK more than once. I expect nothing but hard work and dedication, she says sternly. Inwardly, she fumes, wondering why he's here. After the speech, she marches to him and pulls him aside. What are you doing here, she hisses. Ji-UK looks at her with his usual calm demeanor. I didn't have much of a choice, he says cryptically. When she presses for details, he hesitates. I can't tell you everything, he admits, his voice lowering. Her anger doesn't waver, and instead of asking about his current situation, her first question catches him off guard. Why did you disappear, she demands. Ji-UK sighs. Because I didn't want to lie to you about where I was, he replies softly. She glares at him, but there's a flicker of something softer in her expression. Fine, she snaps. But don't let anyone here find out you're my. You know she doesn't say the word, but Ji-UK understands. I'll keep your secret, he promises, though his faint smile suggests he finds her irritation amusing. Meanwhile, Ja Yeon meets Ha-jun for lunch at a cozy restaurant. They talk casually about her work, but she's careful not to reveal too much about her novels. Before she can delve deeper into her writing, Hae-jun gets a call from his boss, Ju Yu-hoon, who seems suspicious of Ja Yeon's intentions. Unknown to her, Ju Yu-hoon has been spying on them, worried that Ja Yeon might use her knowledge of his identity against him. Back at the company, new hires attend an educational fair where they are evaluated by customers. Hae Young, determined to make Ji-UK fail, hands him a bee costume and assigns him the task of entertaining children. You'll be too busy to get evaluated, she mutters under her breath, satisfied with her plan. But her scheme backfires when Ji-UK removes the costume to grab a drink of water. His handsome, sweat-soaked face attracts the attention of the mothers, who shower him with glowing evaluations. While managing the event, Hae Young notices a young boy with bruises on his arms and legs. Her heart sinks as she realizes he's likely being abused. She secretly takes photos for evidence, but the boy's father catches her in the act. He storms over, demanding she delete the pictures. When she refuses, he tries to grab her phone. She stumbles, clutching her phone tightly, just as Ji-UK arrives. Without hesitation, Ji-UK steps between them, confronting the furious man. The commotion brings them to the police station, where the company lawyer Kang Bit-nae arrives to assist them. Bit-na's presence reassures Hae Young, but her vague responses to how she knew about the incident leave her suspicious. Later, Hae Young convinces Bit-na to press charges against the abusive father. Unbeknownst to her, Bit-na's primary concern is protecting Ji-UK, not her. After leaving the station, Hae Young and Ji-UK sit at a bus stop, tending to their minor injuries from the scuffle. Ji-UK looks at her curiously. How did you know the boy was being abused, he asks. She hesitates before answering. My mother ran a foster home. Being around the kids, I learned how to notice the signs, she says quietly. Ji-UK nods, sensing a deeper pain she's not sharing. As Hae Young boards the bus, the mysterious man from the nursing home pulls up in a sleek car and gestures for Ji-UK to join him. The man drives Ji-UK to a luxurious penthouse, handing him a credit card and car keys. Suspicious, Ji-UK asks, what do you really want from me? Is this about leaking company information? The man shakes his head. Just do your job and be punctual, he replies nonchalantly. Ji-UK narrows his eyes. Are you my real father? The man laughs humorously. I've been infertile for years, he retorts, leaving Ji-UK more puzzled than ever. The Bok household. Ju-hoon faces increasing pressure from his parents. His father insists he sign a contract stating he'll lose his position if he damages the company's reputation. Ju Yu-hyen's mother, however, counters with her own ultimatum his father should sign a contract agreeing to resign as CEO if he causes any scandals. The tense atmosphere highlights the family's fractured dynamics. They convince her to join them for a team dinner, where she drinks more than usual, still upset about Ji-UK's unexpected presence. If people find out about you, she slurs, pointing at Ji-UK, I'll go from team leader to someone's wife. I'll be blamed for everything you do wrong. On the way home, Ji-UK tries to tell her he was genuinely happy to see her again, but she's already asleep, leaning against his shoulder. When they arrive at her house, they find Woo Jae slumped against her front door, completely drunk. Ji-UK offers to call Yi-lin, but Hae Young refuses. He watches her struggle to lift Woo Jae and finally asks, "Are you still not over him?" Her voice is quiet but firm. "My feelings are my problem." Annoyed, GUK starts to walk away but stops. Without a word, he returns and helps her lift Woo Jae into a taxi before disappearing into the night. The next morning, Hae Young is called into a meeting with Yi Lin, who looks unusually serious. Meanwhile, Gi-won, one of her team members, accuses her of workplace harassment after overhearing her conversation about GUK being a ticking time bomb. Hae Young, unaware of the misunderstanding, assumes GUK reported her in retaliation. As she faces the inquiry team, who warn her about losing her position, the door suddenly bursts open. GUK steps inside, his voice colleagues whisper behind her back, and a few even approach her directly with nosy questions. Following Hae Young's instructions, GUK responds to the gossip with unflinching shamelessness. "Yes, I'm her husband," he tells a curious coworker. "Yes, we live together." "Why?" "Jealous." Later that day, Hae Young is informed that Bok Gi-yun, the man who originally reported her, is quitting. One of her colleagues mentions that Gi-yun might be part of the Bok family, the same family that owns the company. Alarmed, she drags GUK to Gi-yun's house. To her surprise, GUK seems familiar with the place. He greets Gi-yun's mother warmly, and she responds in kind. "It's been a while, GUK," she says with a smile. "Have you been eating properly? No homemade meals?" On the way back, Hae Young fumes. That's what she's worried about. GUK chuckles. "She's always like that. Don't take it personally." But his light-hearted tone only irritates her more. "This is exactly why I didn't want to get married. People think I'm supposed to cook for you now." The next morning, Hae Young decides GUK needs a proper wedding band to maintain their cover. She returns to the store where she had rented a ring earlier, only to learn that GUK has already bought it. Confused and slightly flustered, she wonders why he would do that. When she confronts him about it at work, he casually claims he rented it. His nonchalant lie leaves her frustrated and intrigued. As the day unfolds, GUK finds himself the subject of unsolicited advice from male coworkers, who tell him to be the man of the house. Meanwhile, Hae Young is bombarded with remarks about getting pregnant soon, given that she married a younger man. She grits her teeth through the comments, all while secretly wondering why GUK would go to the trouble of buying the ring. After work, Hui Song and Ja Yan join her for drinks. When she brings up the ring, Hui Song smirks. "Maybe he likes you," she suggests. But Ja Yan has another theory. What if he has a girlfriend? Maybe he bought it as a couple ring. The idea gnaws at Hae Young, though she pretends to brush it off. Meanwhile, Ja Yan reveals that she's settling her defamation case with Ju Yu Han on one condition: he has to do community service at an orphanage. It turns out to be the same orphanage where GUK volunteers as a teacher. During his time there, Ju Yu Han watches GUK interact with the children and is struck by his genuine care for them. The director praises GUK as an exceptional volunteer, deepening Ju Yu Han's respect for him. The next morning, GUK surprises Hae Young by picking her up in his car. "Do you have a girlfriend?" she asks abruptly, unable to suppress her curiosity. GUK grins. "My wife is the only special woman in my life," he replies smoothly. He even hands her her favorite triangle kimbap for breakfast. As she eats, a piece of rice sticks to her face, and GUK leans in to brush it off. The moment feels oddly intimate, and Hae Young quickly changes the subject, asking about the ring. Before he can answer, his phone rings, saving him from the conversation. At work, Hae Young learns about a surprise press conference. Assuming it's related to the orphanage, Ju Hyun storms into the room, only to find Hae Young and GUK instead. The press conference is actually about the child abuse case from the education fair. The mysterious man from GUK's penthouse encounter is also present, raising GUK's suspicions further. Later, a flashback shows GUK placing a smartwatch in his shoe to record the man's voice during their last conversation. Listening to the recording, he hears the man mention something about using Hae Young, which sets off alarm bells. That evening, GUK tries to warn her, but she interrupts him. "If this is about me, I don't want to hear it," she says firmly. "My job is my priority right now, and I can't afford distractions." The dinner with the Bok family begins awkwardly, with Woo Jae and Yi Lin also in attendance. Bok Gi-ho, the family patriarch, questions Ha Young about her family background, his tone bordering on interrogation. When the focus shifts to GUK, he bluntly states, "My father was a coward who wouldn't give me his name." Ask how he fell for Hae Young. GUK surprises everyone by saying, "Her calculating nature drew me in. For someone who felt worthless, she made me feel like I was worth something." As the evening progresses, the drinks keep flowing. By the end of the night, everyone is thoroughly drunk. The next morning, Hae Young wakes up in bed, groggy and disoriented. She turns her head to see Guk beside her. Before she can process this, another groan comes from the other side. Woo Jae sits up, looking equally confused. All three scream in unison. The morning chaos continues as Hae-young, Guk, and Woo Jae scream at the absurdity of waking up in the same bed. Guk rubs his temples, clearly hungover, while Hae-young throws a pillow at Woo Jae. "What are you doing here?" she yells. Woo Jae looks around in confusion, searching for his watch and phone. "I don't even know how I got here," he replies defensively. Before the situation can escalate further, Yi Lai-lin barges into the room, furious. "Woo Jae, why are you in their room?" she snaps. Woo Jae sheepishly explains that he must have wandered in by mistake. Hae-young hastily covers up for him, listing exactly where he might have left his belongings. This makes Yi-lin suspicious. "How do you know him so well?" she asks sharply. Flustered, Hae-young blurts out, "We've known each other for years, we're just close friends." Yi-lin seems appeased for now, but gives Woo Jae a stern warning before dragging him out. At breakfast, Hae-young sits across from Guk, her head pounding. "I regret this marriage," she mutters, her voice barely audible. Guk looks up from his plate, his expression faltering for a moment. "You can ask for a divorce whenever you want," he says softly, though there's a hint of sadness in his tone. Woo Jae, passing by, overhears their conversation and smirks, clearly enjoying the tension. Ji-UK returns to his apartment to find manager Jang waiting for him. "You've accepted the job," Jang says with a knowing smile. Guk nods but makes it clear he doesn't want any further involvement. "I'll move out soon," he adds firmly. Jang tries to convince him otherwise, but Guk remains resolute, refusing to let his past define him. Meanwhile, Hae-young visits Tae-hyung's studio, hoping to see Hui-song. Instead, she stumbles upon Tae-hyung hugging another woman. Without hesitation, she grabs her shoe, ready to hurl it at him. Just as she's about to strike, Hui-song arrives and stops her. "It's not what you think," Hui-song says calmly. Back home, Hui-song reveals that she's in a polyamorous relationship with Tae-hyung. Hae-young is baffled. "How can you love more than one person at a time?" she asks incredulously. Hui-song replies with a smile. "Love doesn't have rules." Ja-yeon forces the two women to sit down and hold hands, insisting they talk things through. "We're sisters," Ja-yeon reminds them. "No matter what, we have each other." Hui-song reassures Hae-young that as long as they're together, she doesn't care what the world thinks. At the orphanage, Ju Hyun has sent over dryers to help with the children's laundry. Ja-yeon arrives to question his intentions, but before Hae-jun can see her, Ju-hyun grabs her hand and runs. "Why are you running?" she asks, laughing. Ju-hyun glances at her, momentarily captivated by her smile. When she reveals that the protagonist in her novel is named Hae-jun because it's the name of someone she likes, Ju-hyun's mood visibly darkens. The next morning, Hae-young decides Guk needs to move into her house to maintain their charade. She takes him to a tiny, cluttered room on the rooftop. As they clean, Guk spots an old photo of himself with Hae-young's mother. He quickly hides it, but the memory lingers. A flashback shows a young Guk arriving at Hae-young's house years ago, greeted warmly by her mother. Later, Hae-young hosts a housewarming party to convince her colleagues of her marriage's legitimacy. Hui-song and Ja-yeon go all out, decorating and cooking for the event. Guk charms the guests with his quiet demeanor, while Hae-young pretends he made the kimbap served at the party. When Ji-hyun boasts about Guk's popularity with women, Hae-young feels a pang of guilt. After the party, she apologizes to Guk. "Because of me, you can't experience the normal life of a new employee," she says softly. Ji-UK looks at her seriously. "Do you really want me to date other women?" he asks. She nods hesitantly, avoiding his gaze. He steps closer. "Well, my body and heart are in the same place right now," he says, his voice steady. His words catch her off guard, and she feels her heart race. As Guk heads upstairs, Hae-young replays his words in her mind. Hui-song's advice about living life without regrets echoes in her ears. Summoning her courage, she follows him upstairs. Without a word, she approaches him and kisses him. Guk freezes for a moment before leaning in, deepening the kiss. Later, a flashback shows the drunken night in their hotel room. Guk helps Hae-young remove her necklace, his touch gentle. When she moves to take off her wedding ring, he stops her. "Keep it on," he says quietly. "As long as you're wearing it, you're on my side," she smiles, her eyes softening. "You're cute," she whispers before falling asleep. The next morning, Ja-yeon and Ha-jun visit their old school, the memories pulling Ja-yeon into a spiral of flashbacks. She recalls the day her father stormed Hae-young's house, yelling and searching for her. Hae-young's parents stood their ground, driving him away and telling Ja-yeon that transferring schools and foster homes was the only way to stay safe. Ja-yeon remembers the relief and heartbreak of leaving behind everything familiar. Back in the present, on the rooftop, Hae-young kisses Guk. But as they pull apart, The truth of her actions becomes clear. She had noticed Woo Jae watching Guk climb up and had orchestrated the kiss for show. Guk's face darkens with anger. A fake kiss without my consent. He mutters, leaning in and kissing her back, his frustration palpable. Woo Jae watches from afar, his jealousy simmering. Later, Woo Jae lies to Yi-Lin, saying he had gone for a walk. But Yi-Lin's suspicions deepen as she begins to connect the dots between Woo Jae and Hae-young's familiarity. Meanwhile, the morning at Hae-young's house starts with tension. She and Guk bicker over breakfast, the lingering effects of their rooftop confrontation evident in their curt exchanges. Elsewhere, Ji-hyun seeks updates on Ja-yeon's well-being from Ha-jun. To his surprise, Ja-yeon agrees to meet him. Their meeting near the police station is fraught with unease. Ja-yeon, now aware of his identity as Hae-young's boss, reveals she's withdrawn the lawsuit. Ju-hyun offers a sincere apology, but their conversation is cut short when Ja-yeon spots her biological father. Panicked, she pulls Ju-hyun into an alley, tears streaming as the weight of her past crashes down. In a rare moment of vulnerability, Ju-hyun sings a song her favorite. His soft voice and the song's familiarity offer a fragile sense of comfort. They part ways, both believing it's their last encounter. Back at home, Hae-young discovers Guk's mattress is painfully thin and uncomfortable. She decides to take matters into her own hands but doesn't address it immediately. Meanwhile, Guk visits Hae-young's mother, Yoon-ok, bringing her a small gift and taking the time to feed her. During their conversation, he admits his feelings for Hae-young, lamenting how oblivious she is to them. In a brief moment of clarity, Yoon-ok recalls fond memories of her daughter. Returning home, Guk tries to impress Hae-young with traditional acts of chivalry, offering to open jars and fix light bulbs. But Hae-young, ever self-sufficient, brushes him off. Guk's efforts seem futile, but he doesn't give up. At the same time, Ji-ho expresses frustration to manager Jang about Guk's lack of ambition. Ji-ho shifts his focus, suggesting that son Hae-young might be a more valuable target. Jang, leaving the house, crosses paths with Jeong-ae, who enlists his help for an unspecified task. Driving to work the next day, Hae-young and Guk remain tense. Their conversation shifts to Have-young struggles with a marketing event. Guk, mentioning his employee discount for the orphanage, inadvertently sparks an idea in Hae-young. At work, her marketing pitch includes a proposal for an event at the orphanage, which Ju-hyun approves. However, he insists she keep the plan secret from Guk and Ja-yeon. Later, Guk seeks advice from a coworker on handling a fight between a married couple. The coworker suggests making a heartfelt promise never to repeat the mistake. Meanwhile, Huey Song records an audition tape at the studio with Tae Hyung, their casual banter masking deeper tensions. At the end of the day, Hae-young finds an apology letter from Guk in his car, promising never to kiss her again. She crumples it, frustrated by his indirect approach. Determined to fix things, she takes him mattress shopping, insisting on buying him a comfortable bed. Her kind words, "You deserve to rest well," leave Guk visibly moved. He seizes the moment, admitting he likes her. "I know you like me too," he adds confidently. Hae-young remains silent, her thoughts a whirlwind. At tea dinner, Guk's flirting becomes more apparent, his tone light but his intentions clear. When they return home, Hae-young hesitates before asking if Guk will wait for her until she's ready for a relationship, ready to confront her feelings. Guk's answer is simple and reassuring. "I will." The morning brings complications as Woo Jae excitedly prepares to visit the orphanage with Hae-young. Yi-lin, noticing his enthusiasm, suggests a department transfer, but Woo Jae stands his ground. At the orphanage, their pitch goes smoothly until the director praises Guk, unaware of his marital status, and expresses hope that he'll marry Yoon-ae, another volunteer. Woo Jae confronts Ha-young about her fake marriage, convinced it's a ploy for revenge. When he suggests rekindling their relationship, Hae-young chases him with an umbrella in hand, ready to strike. Meanwhile, Ja-yeon discovers Ju-hoon's new, heartfelt comments on her work. During a call with Hae-jun, she learns the shocking truth. Hae-jun wrote the negative comments under Ju-hyun's influence. Hoping for home, Guk encounters manager Jang again. Jang warns him that Jong knows about his existence and urges him to protect Hae-young. Inside, Guk and Hae-young work on setting up his new room. As they come close, Guk reminds her of her own words about needing physical compatibility in a relationship. Hae-young, flustered, recalls his earlier statement about his heart and body being one package. Ju-hyun, who bursts in and accuses Guk of being Ji-ho's illegitimate son, interrupts their intimate moment. The accusation hangs heavily in the air, threatening to upend the fragile balance of their lives. Morning brings bright sun but heavy hearts. Ju-hyun and Hae-jun are at the orphanage, playing soccer with the kids. Their cheerful laughter fills the air. But Ju Hyun's thoughts are clouded. After the game, Ja Yeon arrives, catching sight of Ju Hyun speaking warmly to the children. She hesitates but finally approaches him. Despite having a whirlwind of questions, the only thing that escapes her lips is, "Do you like me?" Ju Hyun pauses, then admits, "I do, even though I have no right to." Ja Yeon shakes her head, dismissing his confession. "Happy endings aren't for me," she says softly, turning to leave. Ju Hyun chases after her, asking for a chance to prove her wrong. But she's resolute. As she walks away, Hajun steps into view, recognizing Ja Yeon as the writer Yeon Bo Ra. Conflicted, Ja Yeon hurries off with Ju Hyun, who drives her home. Along the way, she drops hints about moving out soon, leaving Ju Hyun deep in thought. Meanwhile, Guk and Hae Young finish arranging his room. Guk brings up Hae Young's father, but she quickly changes the subject, making it clear it's a topic she avoids. At the same time, Ju Hyun receives a call from his mother, and whatever she says leaves him visibly shaken. The atmosphere shifts that evening when Ju Hyun barges into Guk's room, his emotions boiling over. "Are you Gi-ho's illegitimate son?" he demands. Guk calmly replies that he doesn't know who his father is, but Ju Hyun doesn't believe him. He accuses Guk of scheming to take over the company and orders both Guk and Hae Young to leave Kekulbi. Ja Yeon, standing nearby, witnesses the entire confrontation. After Ju Hyun storms out, Hae Young turns to Guk. "There's only one way to fix this," she declares. "You have to take over Ju Hyun's position." Guk looks at her, surprised by her confidence. Meanwhile, Ju Hyun returns home to a chaotic scene. His parents are mid-argument, with Gi-ho claiming he brought Guk in to push Ju Hyun to be more competitive. Jong-ae, however, is furious, accusing Gi-ho of jeopardizing the family for his selfish games. Later that night, Guk apologizes to Hae Young for dragging her into his problems. She brushes his apology aside, her voice softening. "You've been through so much on your own," she says. "You face this alone." At the moment, Guk's secret lingers the photograph of him with Hae Young's mother tucked away in his drawer. Elsewhere, Hui Song's bag opens, revealing a sonogram. Ja Yeon stares at it, realizing Hui Song is pregnant. Hui Song admits she doesn't know who the father is but asks Ja Yeon not to tell Hae Young. "We've seen what happens when people who aren't ready to be parents have children," Ja Yeon warns. Hui Song nods, the weight of the situation pressing down on her. The next morning, Guk tells Hae Young he plans to resign to end the chaos. But when they arrive at work, they're met with shocking news: Hae Young has been demoted, and Guk is suspended. In a bold move, Guk announces to Ju Hyun that he and Hae Young are divorcing. Ju Hyun doesn't buy it, noticing the ring still on Guk's finger. In a flashback, we see Jong instructing Ju Hyun to send Guk out of the country. At present, Ju Hyun issues a chilling ultimatum: leave the country and never return, or face severe consequences. While all this unfolds, Woo Jae sees an opportunity to rekindle his relationship with Hae Young. He approaches her, questioning the legitimacy of her marriage. Hae Young firmly convinces him that their relationship is real, but the encounter leaves her feeling drained. On the rooftop, Hae Young surprises Guk with bubble blowers to lift his spirits. They laugh together, the light-hearted moment a temporary escape from their troubles. "Don't worry about me," she tells him. "There's more to life than this company." Meanwhile, Ja Yeon gets a phone call that rattles her. She immediately rents a new apartment, her unease palpable. At the same time, Hae Young embarks on a work trip to Busan to shut down an underperforming Kobe branch. On the train, Guk joins her, wanting to spend more time together. In Busan, Hae Young delivers the news to the branch's employees, her heart heavy as she sees the disappointment in their faces. After work, she and Guk explore the city, making memories amidst the stress. Sitting by the beach, Hae Young opens up about her past, sharing her regrets about leaving her mother alone after her father's death. "I wonder if I could have done more," she whispers. Guk listens intently, his presence a quiet comfort. Back home, Ja Yeon notices a man loitering outside their house. Her phone rings, the caller ID reading "murderer." Panic sets in. At the same time, a policeman warns Hae Young to check her messages. She learns that Man Chang-il, Ja Yeon's father, has been released on parole. Rushing home, Hae Young and Guk hear a scream. They see a man embracing Ja Yeon and pull him off, only to find Ju Hyun. Confusion and tension hang thick in the air, leaving everyone stunned as the truth unravels. Ju Hyun had gone out drinking because of Ja Yeon's rejection. It didn't take much for him to get tipsy, and Ha Jun, noticing his state, sent him to Ja Yeon's house in a taxi, hoping he could confront his feelings and move on. Meanwhile, Ja Yeon, seeing a figure outside her house, thought it was her father and grabbed an umbrella to confront him. To her surprise, it was a drunken Ju Hyun instead. He hugged her tightly, Confessing his struggles. At that moment, Hae Young and Guk arrived home and misunderstood the situation. Thinking Ja Yan was in danger, they pulled Ju Hyu Hun away. Ju Hyun began to explain everything, how he had trolled Ja Yan online, met her at the police station, and ultimately fell for her. Hae Young, furious, grabbed the umbrella to hit him, but Ju Hyun cleverly used Guk as a shield. Amid the chaos, Ja Yan confessed that she liked Ju Hyu Hyun too, leaving everyone stunned. Hae Young was in disbelief at Ja Yan's declaration and chased her through the house, determined to knock some sense into her. But when Ja Yan explained her feelings, admitting she knew things wouldn't work out with Ju Hyu Hyun, Hae Young softened. She hugged Ja Yan, telling her she deserved better and promising to protect her. Later, Hae Young found Guk and Ju Hyu Hyun both asleep in Guk's room, one on the bed and the other on the floor. Tenderly, she covered Guk with a blanket and applied ointment to his forehead. As Hae Young tried to shake off the evening's events, she remembered the policeman's warning. She checked her mail and found the letter confirming Man Chang-il's release from prison. A flashback revealed a chilling memory from 10 years ago, a dead body being removed from their house, and Ja Yan's father being dragged away in handcuffs. Now, the thought of Chang-il lurking nearby filled Hae Young with dread. Elsewhere, Hui Song met Tae Hyun to discuss her pregnancy. He assured her that any child of hers would be his as well, and even proposed with a toy ring. However, Hui Song was uncertain, viewing the pregnancy as a mistake. Tae Hyun promised to stand by her regardless of her decision, giving her much to think about. The next morning brought fresh tension. Ju Hyu Hyun, in a rush to use the bathroom, ended up at Hae Young's house again. Mocking him, she invited him to stay for breakfast but made her disdain clear. During the meal, Ju Hyun revealed that Ja Yan was planning to move out and that Guk was preparing to go abroad. Furious, Hae Young ordered them both to leave, though she warned Ju Hyun to stay away from Ja-Yan. Ji-Uk and Ja Yan went elsewhere for breakfast. They discussed their challenges, with Ja Yan deciding to focus on her writing for the day, leaving Guk to face Hae Young's wrath alone. Meanwhile, Hae Young and Hui Song visited Yoon-ok at the nursing home. When Hui Song felt nauseous, Hae Young deduced her pregnancy and congratulated her. Yoon-ok, in a rare moment of clarity, hugged Hui Song and expressed her happiness about the baby. Ji-Uk later met with manager Jang at a racecourse. Jang, horseback riding, invited Guk to try it as well. As Guk took the reins, he recalled the loneliness of learning to ride a bike without his father's help. Jang encouraged him to take control of his life, sharing his own regrets about living for others. Back home, Hae Young stumbled upon a picture of her wedding to Guk in her mother's drawer. Her face betrayed mixed emotions as she resolved to let him go, pretending indifference. Meanwhile, Guk sought help from Ja Yan to buy Hae Young's favorite flowers, ranunculus. When he returned with the bouquet, he found her working on the circuit breaker. Despite her calm demeanor, he sensed her true feelings when the lights went out and she broke down, tears falling silently. J-Uk turned the lights back on and saw her crying. She tearfully asked why he insisted on fulfilling his grandmother's wish and going to a mother who had never shown him love. Guk countered that she had never told him she loved him either. "I love you," he confessed, kissing her. When she hesitated, asking if he was still leaving, he answered with another kiss, leading her to the bedroom. Meanwhile, Ja Yan met Gyu Hyun at K. Kulbi's office under the guise of researching her novel. In his office, Ju Hyu Hyun playfully acted out a scene from her book, making her laugh. As their playful banter turned serious, he leaned in and kissed her. Their budding romance was soon overshadowed by overhearing Woo Jae and Yi Lin arguing about Hae Young. Woo Jae revealed he started dating Hae Young out of pity after her father's murder, while Yi Lin disclosed plans to send Guk abroad. Shocked, Ja Yeon ended things with Ju Yu Hyun, declaring this their first and last date. The next morning, Guk and Hae Young woke up together, their bond stronger than ever. As Ji went to get breakfast, Hae Young placed the flowers in his room but accidentally discovered a photograph of him with her mother. Searching through her mother's old books, she found records of foster children and realized Guk had known her all along. When he returned, she confronted him. Guk admitted the truth but was cut off when she coldly told him to leave. Ji-Uk's mind drifted to his first day at Yoon-ok's foster home. A young version of himself stood in the doorway, clutching a small bag. Yoon-ok smiled warmly, embraced him, and told him he was safe. She asked him to promise never to tell Hae Young he was staying there, and though he didn't fully understand why, he agreed. The warmth of that moment stood in stark contrast to the icy confrontation he now faced with Hae Young. Back in the present, Guk explained everything. Hae Young, however, was livid. She accused her mother of destroying their family and blamed her for taking in another child so soon after her father's death. Ja Yan, who had overheard everything, stayed silent, her face etched with concern. Guk, confused, asked Ja Yan how Hae Young's father died, but Ja Yan simply said that the subject was taboo in their home. Hae Young stormed out, intending to visit her mother at the nursing home. But halfway there, she changed her mind. She thought about Yoon-ok's fragile condition and decided against it. Meanwhile, Hae-jun attended his high school reunion and casually mentioned Ja Yan. This triggered a classmate's memory about a tragic incident: a foster child's father had killed someone at the foster home. Ha-jun froze, the puzzle pieces falling into place. A flashback revealed Yoon-ok apologizing to Ja Yan years ago. She admitted to briefly blaming her for Hae Young's father's death but assured her it wasn't her fault. Yoon-ok, battling the early stages of her illness, promised Ja Yan that the bad memories would fade. She urged Ja Yan to forget the tragedy and focus on rebuilding her life. In a small countryside town, Ji-UK found Hae Young at her mother's old house. She was rummaging through drawers, searching for a diary or some tangible connection to her past. Ji-UK explained that Yoon-ok had cleared out the house to prevent it from being a burden. He also showed her a video of Yoon-ok at the nursing home, lovingly talking to a teddy bear as if it were Hae Young. The video brought tears to her eyes, softening her heart slightly. Meanwhile, Hui-song and Tae Hyung attended an ultrasound appointment. Hearing the baby's heartbeat brought joy, but Tae Hyung's lingering doubts, fueled by his ex-girlfriend's words, clouded the moment. Hui-song noticed and later confronted him. When he admitted momentary regret, she walked away, disheartened. Back at the house, Ji-UK and Hae Young talked late into the night. He revealed that they had met once before on her father's death anniversary when she was smoking outside. She had jokingly called him Little Crab and borrowed his lighter. The memory brought a bittersweet smile to her face. Ji-UK confessed that he had fallen for her during their fake marriage but disappeared because of his promise to Yoon-ok. Disappointed, Hae Young suggested they leave. Back home, chaos erupted when Chang-el broke into the house. Ja Yan, wearing headphones, didn't notice until he cut the power. Panicked, she confronted him but managed to lock herself in a room. Chang-el yelled threats, blaming her for Hae Young's father's death. Desperate, Ja Yan sought help. Hae Young and Ji-UK, still far away, realized what was happening and contacted Ju Hyu-hun. He rushed home and arrived just in time. Chang-el attacked Ja Yan, but Yu-hun defended her with whatever he could find: a pair of toy lightsabers. He managed to subdue Chang-el until the police arrived. When Hae Young reached home, she ran to Ja Yan and hugged her tightly. The police escorted Chang-el out in handcuffs, but not before Hae Young delivered a satisfying blow with one of the toy lightsabers. Ja Yan, shaken but safe, realized that Hae Young had always known the truth about her father. Hae Young admitted she chose to support Ja Yan rather than lose another family member. Later, Ja Yan thanked Ju Hyun for saving her. Despite knowing her past, he confessed his feelings once more, and this time Ja Yan kissed him back, tears of relief streaming down her face. That night, Hae Young received a call from the nursing home. Her mother had passed away. At first, she spoke about it with an eerie calm, but Ji-UK held her, urging her to feel her emotions. Finally, she broke down, her grief spilling over as Ji-UK stayed by her side. Ji-UK gently guided Hae Young to the funeral home. As they arrived, her foster sisters gathered around, and the sight of Yoon-ok's body being brought in brought them all to tears. The room was filled with emotions as they began organizing the details of the funeral. To have Young surprised, Ji-UK seemed to know more about Yoon-ok's life than she did, and it unsettled her. Initially, Hae Young being the sole chief mourner, leaving the foster children's names out of the arrangements. But as the funeral progressed, more of Yoon-ok's foster children arrived, sharing heartfelt memories of her. Hae Young realized that her mother's life had touched many people, making her feel both proud and humbled. The funeral hall became crowded, a testament to the impact her mother had on so many lives. Feeling a twinge of guilt, Hae Young added the foster children's names to the information screen. She understood that her mother hadn't just lost her family, she had gained countless children who loved her deeply. Ja Yan became emotional when she saw the gravesite where Yoon-ok would rest, next to Hae Young's father and Ji-UK's grandmother. At the end of the funeral, Ji-UK held Hae Young's hand, reminding her of his promise to Yoon-ok to always take care of her. But Hae Young, struggling with her emotions, told him that he no longer needed to keep any promises. She wanted him to think about himself for once and removed her wedding ring. Her voice broke as she asked him to protect her one last time by letting her go. Ji-UK, devastated, left silently. As Ji-UK packed his belongings and left the house, Hae Young held herself back, listening to his footsteps fade away. Ja Yan gently told Hae Young that Ji-UK was grieving too, but Hae Young explained that if she hadn't ended things then, she wouldn't have been able to do it later. At the orphanage, Ju Hyun inaugurated a new project. Young, dressed in a bee costume, confronted him about the idea he had taken credit for. Ju Han mentioned Jiuk's flight and invited her to say goodbye at the airport. Jiuk's departure was a bittersweet affair, with Mr. Jang and Ju Hyun present to see him off. Even Bok Ji-ho watched from afar, silently supporting Ji-UK. 6 months passed. Ju Han rose to the top of his industry and fulfilled his promise to his father, asserting his independence. Meanwhile, Jia Yan concluded her romantic entanglements and focused on her career. Hui Song, now heavily pregnant, worked through her own challenges. Hei Yan left her corporate job to start her own business. Ha Jun joined her, aiming to become a programmer but currently managing operations. The business struggled to secure investors, but Ju Hyun unexpectedly agreed to fund them, showing a softer side. Hei Young received a call about selling her mother's house in the countryside. When she arrived, she spotted Ju UK with another woman. Avoiding him, she asked her realtor to handle the situation. The encounter left her feeling hollow, even as she tried to focus on her work. Meanwhile, Jia Yan gave a guest lecture at a university, where Ju Hyun appeared in the audience. Encouraged by his presence, she delivered a successful talk. Afterward, they spent the day exploring the city, and Ju Hyun proposed with a pair of matching rings. Jia Yan accepted, ready to embrace a new chapter of happiness. Back in town, Hei Young learned that GUK was in town for a wedding. Visiting the old market where GUK used to work, she ran into the shop owner, who revealed that GUK was nearby. When they met, Hei Young congratulated him on his supposed wedding, trying to hide her emotions. GIUK, however, clarified that he is not married. The woman with him was his stepsister, and he had been house hunting for his stepfather. He handed her a snow globe, her birthday gift, and confessed that he had returned for what his heart had left behind. JI-UK, now slightly drunk, leaned on Hei Young, telling her he wasn't too heavy for her to carry, a poignant reference to their past. She brought him home, feeling a flicker of hope. The next morning, when she didn't see him in the house, she panicked, fearing he had left again. But GUK returned with breakfast and showed her the wedding ring he had put back on his finger. Overwhelmed with emotion, Hei Young finally confessed her love for him, without reservations or calculations. GUK kissed her, and they embraced, ready to face their future together, knowing they had found their way back to each other.